Hello and welcome to In the Growth Space. My name is David McGlennon and I'm your host. I'm really glad to have you along with me. Thank you for taking the time to check out this podcast. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a regular listener and if you're a subscriber, thank you for that as well. I really appreciate that. I've heard from some of our subscribers over the course of the last few weeks, and it's been really encouraging to be able to hear the impact of some of the conversations, some of the insights that they've gained from our conversations and our podcasts. And what I wanted to do today is to just maybe give you a little bit of an update on, some of my own growth path and so some of my own thinking, some of the things that I'm grappling with in my growth journey. And then I'm also going to summarize some of my thoughts and takeaways from the past couple of episodes, because we've had some really great episodes. The last two episodes, the one with Dr. Heather Brown on communication, and then the one just last week with Tim Tannert, former CEO and culture expert. Really had a great conversation there. Some great takeaways from the conversation with both Tim and Heather. So before I get into just my updates, let me just say, if you're not a subscriber, let me ask you to subscribe. Go hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe, but then also hit the little bell, and that will alert you when we upload new podcast episodes. Really appreciate it. One last thing then, if you would just rate and review at the end, that'd be great. We would love for you just to be able to rate the podcast. We always love hearing how the podcast has impacted you in some way. We really appreciate that. So one of the things that I've been grappling with, quite frankly, is just the whole less is more theme that we had from the Inner Circle Summit back in November. I've been wrestling with this one a little bit more. I've really been considering what needs to be taken out of my life, my business. 2024 has been great. I mean, it's been off to a really, I'll say, a roaring start. I mean, my schedule has been packed. I've had a lot of impactful conversations with my coaching clients. We've had some great kickoffs to the new Inner Circle groups. And I've been asking myself questions about, what do I need to let go of? And I'm taking some questions from the book by Dr. Ben Hardy, 10X is easier than 2X. And one of those questions is really, what are the 80% of things that are keeping me in my current version of me and holding me back from the next version of me, the 10X version of me? And so I've been asking myself those questions, and I've been doing some journaling on that question. I'm not sure where that is at the moment. I'm not sure some of those things yet. I've got about 2 or 3 things that I'm getting ready to let go of. And I'll tell you, it's scary. I shared a video with our emerging leader group a couple of weeks ago. And that video, you can go out on YouTube and check it out, but it's a little girl at the top of a ski slope, and she's jumping. I think it's a 60-foot jump for the first time, and she's scared, and she's never done it before. And she's asking all kinds of questions, and you can hear it in her voice. There's some self-talk. And so, I mean, I'm not going to lie, this is scary to let go of certain things because they've become comfortable. And we talk all the time here and in the emerging leader group and our advancing leader group about getting outside of our comfort zone. And that's never easy. So that's just one aspect or thing that I'm grappling with right now is like, what do I need to let go of so that I can fulfill the vision that I have for not only just my business, but also my life and this next season of my life. One of the things that we're doing from a business perspective is we're making some decisions on creating a retreat for business owners that may not be super clear on what their next act is or their next chapter and what it looks like for them. I've been talking with my one of my collaboration partners, Andy Hall, and we're talking about how do we create an environment that would be conducive to allowing the time and the framework for business owners, business leaders who have a real desire to get clear on what their next act looks like. After the conversations that I've had with the folks at the Exit Planning Institute, Lou Colella and Sean Gibbon, a few episodes ago, it's really gotten me thinking about the idea, the thought, and the strategy of succession planning. And quite frankly, it's brought up an awful lot of memories for me of how I wasn't prepared to take over. When my dad died suddenly of a massive heart attack, I wasn't prepared. And I would have really loved to have had some time for my dad to formally mentor me or at least pour into me through a coach, through an emerging leader group. And so it's really one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about emerging leaders. And I'm also passionate about those business owners and senior leaders who are wanting to hand off either to the next generation or perhaps even sell their business and take their lives in a new direction for the next season or the next chapter of their lives. And I know from personal experience that it's so easy to get wrapped up into your business. It's so easy to get wrapped up into your role, whatever your title is, whatever your role is. If you're not a business owner, if you're a leader within an organization, it's really easy to get wrapped up into that role. And so I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage leaders to take time out to think about what does their next act look like. And so right now I'm working on creating that retreat. Looks like right now the retreat is going to be in Atlanta, and it's going to be in September, probably towards the end of September. And it's going to be very, very limited. We'll probably only have maybe slots for like 12 or 15 people at the very, very most. So it's going to be really small, very intimate, but it's going to be in a format that allows the people who attend the opportunity to really think and to be guided by myself and also Andy as well. Speaking of Atlanta, I'm flying into Atlanta in May. I get to co-teach with Andy and with Paul Martinelli the Turning Point seminar, the Turning Point retreat. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the retreat is almost at capacity. I think we're at about 80% full right now. And so I'll drop a link into the show notes so that if you have an interest in coming to Turning Point, I would highly recommend you check it out quickly. But Turning Point is another opportunity for you as an individual to come and work on you. It truly is and can be a turning point in your own life, in your own personal development and your own personal growth. And it's really one of the reasons why I love this retreat and I love this seminar with Paul. Paul has created it in such a way that he takes all of the participants through a certain process to be able to take a look at the dreams that they have for their lives and show them a way to begin to live into that dream. I won't give it all away, but I just know that there are people who come back year after year after year because they're at new levels of awareness. They're at new points in their lives, and it's so impactful. So I'm really excited that I get to fly down to Atlanta in May and help Paul and Andy with that. So we'll add that a link to the registration page. Hopefully it's not sold out by the time this airs. But one last thing, maybe that, a couple more things here. We're changing up our business model a little bit, and I'm not going to say a whole lot now, But one of the things that I am doing is I'm creating a new model where it helps to leverage me. It leverages my time. It also leverages the people in my community, my colleagues who are coaches, who are great facilitators. And so we're opening up a new emerging leader group, and we're also opening up a new advancing leader group. So if you're a business leader who's got a team, maybe your team is first-time people leaders. Maybe they're managing people for the very first time, and that's what we would call an emerging leader. Or you might have some high potential leaders, some high potentials or next generation of leaders that you really want to pour into. People like who I was back when my dad passed away, and I had to step up into the role of CEO of our company and really lead. And I didn't know what I was doing. So if that's you, if you have a team that you would like to pour into and really solidify their place in your organization and their place in your team, reach out to me. Send me an email, david@davidmcglennon.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you to see if either the Emerging Leader program is right for you, or maybe the Advancing Leader. Or if you're the owner, if you're the business owner, we are starting the new Elite Inner Circle group that will likely start at that retreat in September down in Atlanta. Last thing here of my updates before I get into just some of my thoughts on the past couple of episodes. We're planning an episode of Q&A, and what I thought I'd do, I've heard some other podcasts do this, and really what I'd like to be able to do is have our listeners call in and record a message or a question that they have, maybe about their own growth journey, their own leadership, or maybe their own business growth or their personal growth or their team growth, because we talk about all of those aspects of growth here on In the Growth Space. So if you'd like to ask a question, if you don't mind having your voice on the podcast, if you've ever wanted to be on the podcast, this is a way to do it. We've got a phone number set up just for you to be able to leave a message and leave your question. And we want to use that question. So one little tidbit, though, is that if you have a question, it would be helpful if you write it out. So oftentimes we want to give some of the backstory, but it's really important to get right to the question, because the quality of the question is really going to determine the quality of the answer. So write out your question, be succinct, 30 seconds or less, maybe a minute at the most. But if you're concise, that'll help me to be able to get right to the heart of answering the question. So here's the number that you can use to ask your question. And just remember that when you leave the message, that you're consenting to us to use your voice on the air. And if you don't want to use your voice, you can email me. We can use your question. Just david@davidmcglennon.com is fine. But here's the number. It's 412-475-9288. We'll put that in the show notes as well. But that number again is 412-475-9288. And you can just leave your question. And we're going to gather those over the course of the next couple of weeks and create an episode, a Q&A episode. And so looking forward to hearing some of your questions. Last thing, I guess, I feel like Columbo today. Just one more thing. So we're continuing to look for recommendations for guests that would impact you and give you just new insights on how to grow, on how to become that next new version of yourself. If you have any recommendations and you can make some introductions to us, we would love that. We would actually love to hear your recommendations and have you introduce us to those people. And maybe that's you. If it's you, if you're listening and you'd like to be on the podcast, you have a story to share, just reach out to me, and I would love to have you on the podcast and hear your growth story. So let me get into today's episode. I know we're already 15 minutes into the conversation here or so. But I wanted to distill some of my thoughts and some of my key takeaways over the last couple of episodes, because there are so many good ones. And I've heard from listeners recently that they've enjoyed my perspective on these conversations. And I don't recap the conversation at the end like I used to. But what I thought I would do is take a couple of the episodes that we've heard here over the past couple of weeks and just give you some thoughts and some key takeaways that I thought were real poignant. I'm going to start with the last episode with Tim Tannert. There were a couple of things that he said that I think were just really great. He shared some great quotes as well. The one thought that he started off with was that leaders aren't born, they're developed. And I like that because I totally agree. As I was sharing earlier, when I took over my business, it wasn't because I was ready. It was, when I took over my dad's business and our family business, I was not ready. And it was really just because he passed away. My dad passed away. And suddenly I was the leader by default. And that's really no way to take over an organization and begin to lead. And so making sure that you're developing your leaders and creating your own succession plan and your own succession strategy, I think is so critical, especially in the era that we're living in right now, with so many baby boomers getting ready to transition and transitioning out of the workforce, and also some of the Gen X leaders who are moving on or wanting to move on to the next act of their life. It's honestly one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about emerging leaders, is because I was one and I wasn't ready, and I really would have enjoyed having someone help me to get ready, to learn how to communicate, to learn how to strategically think, to learn how to make good decisions, all of the aspects and things that go into leadership. We've actually packaged into our emerging leader program, just really knowing yourself a little bit more, being able to understand yourself, and then leading myself and being able to have the discipline and the ability to delegate and be able to have that discipline to lead myself, and then being able to lead others, and then leading through challenges. Those four segments, I think, are the four pillars of our emerging leader group. And I'm super passionate about that. And I really appreciated Tim bringing that forward to the conversation, because I think if you're a leader and you want to retain your employees and attract your employees, you've got to develop them. And if you're not doing it internally, I highly recommend that you find someone who is capable of developing your people and helping you to really pour into them. The other comment that he made, and I think it was a quote. As a matter of fact, I know it was a quote. It was a quote by Tom Izzo, the basketball coach at Michigan State. He said, the best players don't win games, the best teams do. And I think as we develop our people and as we develop our teams, that's what's going to help us win. That's what's going to help us give our organization the best chance at fulfilling our mission and achieving our vision. And honestly, building a high-performing team through the approach of developing our leaders creates a high-performing culture that supports a performance level that really allows a team to focus and will be the sustainable advantage for any company. And that takes intentional leadership. And I think that was a key component of our conversation together. The other thing that he said, and I didn't coach him on this, but the best leaders have a peer group. And he said, and you've heard it before, you become who you hang around. And I can say that I know this has been true for me in my own growth journey. I know that I never would have gone on more of a health journey and staying in shape all of my most of my adult life, unless I had a peer group that I was around who also wanted to be healthy and do things that were physical. I'm actually looking at a photo, a collage of all of the different adventures that I've been on with my group, with my guys who we've done biking trips, we've done triathlons, we've done some rappelling, we've done via ferrata, and it takes a peer group to help us to really do the things that we want to do, because that peer pressure is honestly it's important. And so the best leaders have a peer group and have a place where it's safe for them to process out loud. You know, so many leaders feel like they're isolated and they don't have a place where they can actually just process out loud and really say the things that they want to say so that they can hear them out loud and not scare their team. So I think that was a really important part of the conversation with Tim as well. One thing that I don't remember if he said it or if it just was a component of our conversation, but I know it was a component of my thinking when we had our conversation, and that is that culture isn't just for the CEO. Yes, it needs to be led by the CEO, and the CEO needs to be very intentional with leading the culture, but it's for everybody. I mean, each one of us has a way that we can lead into our behaviors and lean into our component of the culture. The other thing that Tim did say, and it's part of his framework, if you remember, he used CURES as his acronym for his culture methodology, and part of the acronym was the U. It was upgrowth, and in Tim's framework, he used upgrowth as a component of culture where companies invest in their people and invest in their growth path. And one of the things he said is that, you know, high-performing team members won't stay in a place where they're not poured into. They'll find another place where they are poured into and they are developed. And so it really is important for us in our culture and in our leadership development to pour into our leaders so that we can reduce our retention and also create great attractiveness to the A players that we want to have in our organization. The other thing that he said that I really liked, and he told the story of the UNC soccer coach, and it made me think of course, you know, my favorite team in the collegiate realm, different sport, but Notre Dame football. You know, over here to my left, I have the sign that hangs in the Notre Dame football locker room on the way out to the stadium and the playing field. And it says, "Play like a champion today." And I think that encapsulates for me the idea of holding myself to a high standard. So as we think about our cultures and as we think about us in creating our own culture, we can hold ourselves to a higher standard. And so we can be reminded to play like a champion today, to really give it our all and to really give it our best so that our organization as a whole, our team, and the leaders within our organization hold each other to a high standard as well. The last part of Tim's framework and something that I just wanted to bring out was just the idea of systems. So his CURES acronym, the S at the end, is systems. What systems are you running on? What system are you running on as a company and as a leader? Now, Tim is an EOS implementer, an entrepreneur's operating system. Yeah, I can say that. And that's a framework that is a really great framework. And He didn't talk about that, but you can go buy the book Traction, and you'll get a great idea of what EOS is. But having a system to run on, I think, is super important, not only for a company, but also as a leader. So I think having a system to run on has been super important for me as well. I use the Full Focus Planner, and that gives me a framework to frame my days, to frame my weeks, to be able to give me ways to prioritize my to-do list, my activities. And so I think it's really important for us to ask ourselves, what system are we running on, and what system are we using as a leader to be able to continue our growth path? The last thing I'll say on that conversation is, and this is a great book, another one by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, but Live in the Gain. The Gap in the Gain is the book, but he talked about living in the gain. So many of us are high performers, high achievers, and it's so easy to look ahead and say, yeah, but I'm not there yet. However, if we look behind, we can see how far we have come. And I have recently been doing more of that, to turn around, to look at the gains that I've made. And I'm really living in that gain more and more, and really appreciate that book and that perspective of living in the gain. And I know that was a great part of the conversation with Tim as well. So I think what I'll do here with Dr. Heather Brown's episode, I'm just going to kind of do a very quick recap, but there were some really powerful things and messages that she had in her conversation with us around communication pillars. Communication is a key to leadership and to leadership growth and to organizational growth. And the thing that I think was really important for me anyway is the fact that she talks about really beginning with the end in mind as it relates to communication, and also that words are the smallest part of communication. It's not just about talking. It's about listening, but more importantly, it's about beginning with the end in mind. In other words, why are we having the conversation in the first place? What's my desired outcome? And that, I think, is an important frame to be able to begin, before we begin a communication, before we begin a conversation, to ask ourselves, what do I hope to get from this conversation? What do I hope that the desired outcome is from this conversation? And that was just one of the pillars that she talked about. The other pillar was really, how will this conversation benefit the other person? How will this conversation benefit the relationship? And that's a great question to ask ourselves. If we're really, truly focused on building relationships with our team and building trust within our organizations and within our team, we have to ask ourselves, how will this conversation benefit the relationship, the team, our performance, their performance? And then the next pillar was, am I 100% open to their response? In other words, am I in a frame of mind where I can receive whatever their response is going to be? And then the last pillar is this the best time? Do we have the time to really actually have this conversation and really give it its due? And I think that's an important aspect of communication, and a pillar as well, that Dr. Heather Brown talked about. And I think that episode was really all about being curious as a leader, curious about your own internal game as well. It means that I'm aware, means that I'm a conscious leader. And I think being conscious, being aware of my own emotional state, aware of my own emotional intelligence, and also aware of others' emotional intelligence and the impact that the conversation will have on the other person, the relationship, the greater organization. So I think both of those conversations and both of those episodes were really, really good in terms of things that we can take away, things that we can implement and use on our growth journey, in our leadership journey as well. I hope this has been helpful for you just to kind of think about the last 2 episodes. We've got some great episodes coming up, and so I want to make sure that you hit subscribe and be a subscriber so that you don't miss anything. There's also a way to get in a little bit closer contact with us as well. We have an email community, and every week I send out an email. I call it my weekly wisdom, and it just is there are aspects of either the podcast or the growth journey that I'm on, or the growth journey that some of my groups are on, that I just speak into. And if you'd like to have that, it's usually just a short email that you can read in just a couple of minutes to give you some things to think about for that week. If you'd like to be a part of that community, there's going to be a link in the show notes. Just go to that link and you can sign up for that weekly wisdom email. So thanks so much for being a part of the podcast. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for giving me your attention and for really leaning into the podcast. Really do appreciate it. And I can't wait to be with you again next week. And until then, be well.